Naspers, from our index, the SA equity markets have actually been flat now for 3 years. So is this last sell-off South African specific, or is it just an emerging markets play in general?
Well, you mentioned the equity market, but for South African investors more generally, and for a multi-asset class investor like myself, where I can choose from any number of asset classes, no asset class has delivered above 8% over the last 3 years, barring offshore equities. So it's been a pretty dire time for South African investors, and the reasons for that have been South African specific for a period of time, which is really where we missed out on to a large extent on that large emerging market upswing we saw relatively recently, as the economy here was struggling on the back of any number of the issues we can talk about a bit later, and as we seem to have taken a few steps forward, we've now been hit by what's happening globally and being caught up in the emerging market sell-off. So we've had really the worst of both worlds from a South African investor perspective.
Prof, from that, do you think that still is opportunity for South African assets, and specifically which sectors do you see the most growth coming from?
Yeah, well, the weak rand is really not our doing. It's not of our doing. It's the strong dollar. Weak euro, weak emerging market currencies generally. We performed very much in line with the Mexican peso and the Brazilian real and the Turkish lira and the Chilean peso. It's not lately South African specific. It was South African specific in December of 2015 when Mr. Zuma, for his own reasons, sacked the Minister of Finance. That sent the rand into something of a tailspin, a Zuma effect. But a weak rand means higher prices in South Africa. And it may also mean, unfortunately, higher interest rates. So it puts a squeeze on domestic spending. Petrol prices go up automatically. Less spending power, less left over for households. They spend less. The retailers don't do very well. The banks don't do very well because the willingness to buy homes and take out mortgage loans is lacking. So we had a very nice run going last year in response to what was a stronger rand. Remember, the rand moved all the way from 16, close to 17, all the way back towards 11. Inflation came down, spending picked up nicely. There was one 25 basis point cut. Yes, I would have cut much more aggressively. And we had a recovery underway. But boy, the dollar hit us in April, hit us pretty hard. So the immediate outlook for South African businesses catering to the South African consumer, directly or indirectly, it has deteriorated.
And the last $1 million question that I think we get asked more than anything else is the direction of the rand. Do we have any views on that, Paul?
Our committee view was very widely held that the rand is way too oversold. And trying to just talk about, Prof alluded to it, but the way our process works is we have a global investment strategy process where we discuss the outlook for Europe and China, which has been obviously a strong driver of the dollar and the weakness in emerging markets. We think it's temporary. That means that emerging markets and commodities should recover, which that means that the rand is a commodity and emerging market currency. That should recover as well. On our models, in where we try and just pull a number out based on global inputs, we think it should be closer to about 13 rand.